U.S. Ambassador to the United Nations Nikki Haley speaks out against Iran before a UN report on the country's nuclear agreement today. A statement from her office says this in part. Ambassador Haley will offer irrefutable evidence that Iran has deliberately violated its international obligations and has tried and failed to cover up the violations. Here's a look back at how President Trump described his administration's policy toward Iran. He said this back in October.
Our policy is based on a clear-eyed assessment of the Iranian dictatorship, its sponsorship of terrorism, and its continuing aggression in the Middle East and all around the world. Iran is under the control of a fanatical regime that seized power in 1979 and forced a proud people to submit to its extremist rule.
Joining me right now is Fox News senior strategic analyst General Jack Keane. General, always great to see you, sir. Thanks so much for joining us.
Delighted to be here, Maria.
So let's talk this out. I mean, you're a retired four-star general, former vice chief of staff of the U.S. Army, and chairman of the Institute for the Study of War. What's your take on what's happening today, what we might expect to hear from Nikki Haley, and is that right in terms of the characterization of Iran?
Well, let's look at really what's happened here. You know, on October the 13th, the president the president determined that he was not going to certify Iran being in compliance with the nuclear deal, something he has to do every 90 days, something he has done every 90 days since his administration took over. That kicked it to the Congress, and they had 60 days to conduct a review and decide whether to impose sanctions or not. Those 60 days were up yesterday. The Congress decided to do nothing. So I think what Nikki Haley is doing, they're heading towards another date, January the 13th, where they have to certify whether Iran is in compliance or not. I think they now likely have some evidence that they probably are not in compliance, and I think we're heading towards the President of the United States to pull the United States out of this deal. I think that is the direction we're heading. We have to hear what Nikki Haley's evidence are. But what we do know is that Iran is conducting ballistic missile tests in violation of UN resolution. Number two, they're transferring arms, drones, and missiles to the Houthis, and the Houthis are firing those missiles at Saudi Arabia. Those things are in violation of UN resolution. Whether there's specifics about the nuclear deal, we have to find out from her.
Well, what are the implications, though, of the president pulling the United States out of the Iran deal? I mean, let's not forget all that cash that was sent to Iran already. We gave them all that money, basically in brown paper bags, huge swaths of euros and Swiss francs. So they have all that money already, and then pulling out now, implications?
Well, yes. I mean, it's a great question, Maria. First of all, it doesn't mean that the other nations, the other 5 nations who also signed the nuclear deal, would pull out of it. Right. Likely, they probably would not unless our evidence is so overwhelming that it compels them to do that. They're all doing business with Iran, and they're kind of cozying up to them, to be frank about it. These are European nations, and I doubt whether they want to pull out of it. Secondly, I think what the administration is trying to cope with is just the harsh reality that Iran is aggressive and trampling over U.S. interests and those of our allies in the region. I don't think they would make a move to pull out without discussing this with Israel and without discussing it with Saudi Arabia. And I would believe that if they pull out, both of those countries would be in agreement.
All right, well, we'll watch that. It's important. I want to get to a couple more things with you, General, before you go, because we've got to talk about North Korea and also your take on the budget. So, curbing North Korea's nuclear missile program. The latest provocation from North Korea, Kim Jong-un, says his country, quote, will victoriously advance and leap as the strongest nuclear power and military power in the world, according to the state news agency KCNA. Your reaction to this provocation?
Well, more bellicose language from him, to be sure. But here's the backdrop to that is the fact that the Russians have told us that North Korea is willing to have some serious negotiations. Whether that's true or not remains to be seen. Secretary of State Tillerson this week talked about negotiations. Now, listen, the North Koreans have always used negotiations as a ploy to advance their program covertly while we're conducting negotiations. Our administration here is very much aware of that. But I do think there may be a slight opening here, the beginning of a diplomatic effort to succeed. We'll see. In the next couple of weeks, I think we'll know the answer to that. The bellicose language will likely continue regardless.
You know, it's funny. You have to scratch your head wondering what this guy wants. I mean, he just wants to be recognized as a nuclear power, I guess.
No, what he wants, he has a rational strategy. I mean, what he wants is to guarantee the security of his regime, the Kim dynasty to go on. That's clearly what he wants. That's why he wants to point weapons at the American people, much like Russia and China does. If there's a way that we can convince him, truly convince him that we never would attack North Korea, then I think this thing starts to move in the right direction.
All right. We've talked about the budget a lot, General. You obviously have educated and informed us on this program in terms of the need to build up the military, the fact that 50% of our planes in the Navy are not flyable. What's your take this morning? Tuesday, President Trump signed that $700 billion military budget into law. It includes increasing funding for missile defense programs against North Korea. The budget will not become a reality until lawmakers, of course, roll back a law capping the 2018 defense spending at $549 billion. And that's one thing that was very important to you, removing those caps. Are you surprised by all of this? What's your take in terms of what we learned yesterday on the budget regarding military spending?
Well, first of all, this is a huge down payment on rebuilding the military, something that President Trump promised in the campaign, something now he's executing. That's good. But the problem is we have budget caps. And if we don't remove the budget caps, then the base budget goes back to what you just said. It's going to be about $100 billion less in the base budget, or $549. That's Obama's base budget. What I think will happen, in talking to the congressmen themselves, is I think we will get an agreement in suspending the budget caps probably for 2 more years. That will take some Democrats to agree, not just Republicans, because you need 60 votes in the Senate to be able to do something like that. That will also mean that they're going to have to give the Democrats some increases in programs that they want to be able to make this compromise work.
So, I mean, it's probably on the immigration front, right? They're doing deals back and forth with the Democrats to try to increase military spending and give the Dems what they want. Is that what you're saying, that there's got to be some agreements in terms of immigration and DACA?
I don't think it'll be immigration and DACA.
Okay.
I think it will likely be money for some of their pet programs, to be sure. And maybe DACA will be thrown in there. Don't know for sure. But listen, it's a serious issue, and if they don't suspend the budget caps, we absolutely go right back to Obama's base budget, and there is no rebuilding in the military.
And this needs to happen by January, right?
1 January.
Yeah, okay, great. General, good to see you, sir. Thanks so much.
Good talking to you, Maria.
We will be tracking that. General Jack Keane joining us there.